Well, welcome back, everybody. This is Dan John from danjohnuniversity.com. Welcome to episode 153, which is just nice to say. It's the middle of summer here in Utah, and I'm happy to be back each and every week to share my experience with you. Remember, if you have questions, email them to me at podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. I'm happy to answer every question you got. Things are expanding on the website. I sure hope you join us. I'm actually, just after I finish this, going to do another new video for you on this training program that I really like a lot. It's very fast. It's my kind of go-to when things are crazy. Happy to always share it with you. I'm getting ready to go off to do a couple of other little minor adventures, and well, let's get started on these questions. Our first question comes from Dave. Dave is a great name. He says this, Dave says this: I train in a commercial gym that has a nice collection of kettlebells. The big ones on the end don't seem to get much use. I've thought for a long time that the original set of kettlebells, Dave, that was the 16, the 24, and the 32, the 16, the 24, and the 32, were basically all anybody would ever need. And of course, then they started expanding them. And then, of course, when the 20s came out, I realized that for most men, the 20s are almost a perfect weight, double 20s. And then the 12s came out. And then I realized the 10s worked out so well for so many of my female clients. And of course, now I have a collection of, like you have, I have 32 kettlebells in my garage and sprinkled throughout the home because people steal them and don't put them away. But you're right. Once you get past 24, the 32s, the 36s, I have the 48. Not a lot of people use them. So the question is this: I was wondering what someone should do with a 48 kilo kettlebell. It seems like it would be really cool to dust those off and be able to press it. I agree. Do you have a program that puts someone pressing the 48K? Well, it's interesting because the first time I saw a 48K, this is pat me on the back time, and I understand that. I picked it up and pressed it without a problem. Well, why? Well, because I have a huge background in the Olympic lifts and barbell training. So the 48K just isn't very much weight if you've put a lot more weight over your head than that. Now, having said that, what are the best programs for keeping your press up? Well, I always think with pressing, and this is the system I use to press 300 pounds, which is about 138 kilos. I did that as an adult right around the turn of the millennium, and I'd never clean and pressed it before. And so I used a very simple program. And the program was this. 1 day a week, I did 3 sets of 8 with a minute rest. Yes, that's my transformation program, and yes, it's boring as can be. 3 sets of 8 in the military press with a exact minute rest. Now, the loads never got very heavy on it because that minute rest was really cutting into everything. Now, why do I think that was still a valuable program? Well, there is something important if you want to improve your press. You have to press. You have to press all the time. Same issue most of us have with the squat. To improve our squats, you have to squat a lot. The way I'm built, for me to improve my squats, basically I had to move to squatty movements 5 days a week, which is not fun. To improve my press, I don't need as much volume. So day 1, 3 sets of 8 in the military press with 1 minute rest. I think the most I got up to, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but for sure it was 135, and it might have been much more than that. The other day of the week, I would clean and press, and I would start with a lighter load. It could have been 95, 115, 135, 155. And I just kept adding load to that weekly clean and press workout. Now, we're talking about kettlebells, but I still think the same points are true here. And what are those points I'm trying to make? Well, the first off, I think you need to do volume hypertrophy with your press to improve your press. But I also think you need to go heavy with your press to improve your press. Now, one thing I just said there will stop the planet Earth from rotating because it's pretty obvious to anyone who's ever put weight over the head. Now, I found when I was getting ready for the RKC the first time, I just did the simple rite of passage, which is 3 days a week, medium, light, heavy, clean and press, left side, 1 arm, clean and press, right side, 1 arm, 1 pull up, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, and then you work it up to, they're called rungs and ladders. And the workout that let me know I was ready with the 28-kilo bell, I did a total of 75 clean and press with my left arm, 75 clean and press with my right arm, and 75 pull-ups. If you go to the original Enter the Kettlebell book, I think it's in there. The Rite of Passage is a really good program. For a lot of people, it's just too boring to improve. So let me give you some other ideas. This is a program we've used with great success here at my gym. So it's going to be 3 workouts a week, and 2 are basically good old-fashioned hypertrophy. You can do now. Let's make it as simple as we can. Okay, Mondays, double kettlebell press. Find a load that you can go 2, 3, 5. Okay, that's 10 reps. I would like you to go 2, 3, 5. Stay with that weight. 2, 3, 5. Stay with that weight. 2, 3, 5. And okay, for that workout, I just said 3 rounds of 2, 3, 5 gets you a total of 30 reps. I'd like you to experiment with where you just do 2 rounds, 20 reps, 3 rounds, 30 reps, and 5 rounds, which is 50 reps. I've gone as high as 10 on that workout, but I cheated the workout a little bit by going 2, 3, 5, 10. Basically, if I can press something for 5, I can get 10 out of it, especially with kettlebells, because that's kind of the way I'm wired. So I did 5 sets of 2, 3, 5, 10, getting me to 100 reps. I would just like you to go 2, 3, 5, and play around over maybe a 3 or 4 week period with the different variations of a total of 20, a total of 30, and a total of 50. And find out which one seems to be the one you can recover easily. Wednesdays are day 2 or Wednesday's workout in this case. That would be the single volume day. Set of 2 left hand, set of 2 right hand, set of 2 left hand, set of 3 left hand, set of 3 left hand, 5, 5. 2, 2, 3, 3, 5, 5. Still gets you to that 10, but now you're doing single-sided work. I actually think it helps to work on both sides equally to get yourself up to these big press days. Because you're just doing simply a day of up to 20 or even doing 3 rounds up to 30, because you're kind of doing, you're not doing double the work necessarily, if you're following my point here. But when you do 2 here and 2 here, that is kind of 2 sets. So it does feel like it takes longer to do this. And on the 3rd workout of the week, the Friday or Saturday, that's when I'd like you to do my old school clean and press and just keep going up. Now, what I want you to do is find a bell you fail on. I just said bail. That's bail, bell, fail in one word. So we now have a new invention. I wouldn't mind you do it with both hands. I wouldn't mind actually if you went one side first and then followed by the other and alternate that by weeks. But clean and press until you get to a bell you can't press. When you find the bell you can't press, clean it, use both hands, bring it up overhead, and bring it down as slow as you can. Don't go crazy on those reps. Probably 2 or 3 reps of bring it down as slow as you can is good. If you go too many and you're just dropping it, that's not what I want. I want you to fight, and I want you to find where you struggle the most. Now, you might need another set of eyes on you to help you through this, or you can just fight through that, just figure out where it is. So when you go back to your day 1 and day 2 workouts, when you find that sticking point, make sure your brain is really active. Okay, right there, I've got to make sure I'm in the groove and I'm solid. That would be my recommendation. I would give it 6 weeks. If you're well away from it, obviously give you a lot more time. Let's say 12 weeks of this program. 6 weeks would be better for most. And just keep sticking out those. And by the way, do everything else. Do your normal training with on top of that. Don't forget your hinges, your squats. I think pull-ups would probably even actually help your press in some cases. Give that a solid run and nudge your best up, and at the end, figure out what bell you can press, and then get back to me, and we'll see what we need to do. Either get you more reps with that 48, or figure out a way to get you up to that 48? Dave, that's a good question, and I really enjoyed answering it. Thank you. Hey, we got a question from Evan. I would like to hear your thoughts on wall squat sits, the isometric hold where you sit in a chair position against the wall. Evan, it's interesting you raise that what because when I was at Portland State University, when I was studying intensive Turkish and taking these great courses on Yemen and who can forget the other courses? Yeah, I just did. I got Gail Olnakova's book called Legs because I was there for 12 weeks. And I decided to do her first book was Go For It, which I thought was pretty good. And her next book with Legs. These are back in the early 80s. And it does that. I mean, they show their age a little bit, but I like the books. And one of the things she recommended, since I really couldn't, the Portland State University Olympic weightlifting team was good, but because of my schedule, I couldn't really get there. And when you're taking an intensive course, I would get done at 5 every night. And really my workouts just were to clear my head after those long, intensive days. One of the things she did, and I used to do this in my dorm room, calling it a room is a reach, is I would do those wall sits and all those little exercises, those free weight exercises. And I think one of the things you were supposed to build up to, and if I'm wrong, but I want to say it was a 5-minute wall sit. So yeah, I think wall sits have great value. If you're like me, you're on the road a lot. It's an inexpensive way to really remind your quads and that area what it is to squat. So yes, Evan, I am a fan of them. I've begun incorporating the goblet squat overhead press drill into all my warm-ups. Good. And it's helped my hip mobility a lot. Well, good. But for the discussion about squats in the podcast, I haven't heard you speak on the pros and cons of wall squats. Is this exercise something you would ever incorporate into a training plan? Why or why not? Well, as always, I answered the question before the question was finished because that's the way my brain works. But yeah, I think there's real value to it. Now, gentle listeners, let's focus and rewind. Isometric exercises have great value, and then they don't. I've, in my own personal experience, my own experiments with myself and my athletes, you have about a 6-week window for them to work. And I think after that, the body figures things out. Now, of course, what do you do when the body figures things out? Well, that's variation, and variation leads to further adaptations. With the wall squat, and of course, now, if you're a speed skater, this might be a completely different conversation because this is a position you have to learn to kind of fall in love with. When I get my my orthopedic surgeon is part of the Haydn group, and of course, Eric Haydn, the great 5-time gold medalist at the 80 Olympics, that's his place. And he said something interesting one time that he never had that low back issue that most speed skaters get. And for him, he naturally could sit in that very difficult position for a long time and not be bothered by it. So if you are a speed skater, it also seems to help to be from an area that has speed skating and ice rinks. And boy, it'd be nice to have some of that DNA going for you also. So if you're a speed skater, you probably want to keep that in your system as appropriate as you guys figure out in your long-term preparation. For the rest of us, after about 6 weeks, I would step away from the wall squat and either find an appropriate variation with the equipment you have and your life situation, and maybe come back to it. I'm not sure you're going to get a lot of value out of it more than I was about to say once a year, but in your case, since you seem to like it, you might get value out of it twice a year. Good exercise, nothing wrong with it. Keep on keeping on. Thank you. We got a question from Tassos. I'm a 43-year-old male who has been training most of his life. Now that I'm the father of 2 boys, I quickly realized that being an athlete and a coach are 2 different things. Oh yeah. I have a 2-part question. Both my boys play soccer, so the word explosion keeps coming up as a player's attribute. Isn't being explosive a fancy word for just being strong? Well, to be explosive, there's a couple things to be explosive. Yes, I think you can get very explosive by getting freakishly strong in the weight room. But, okay, You also need the appropriate mobility in a sport like soccer. If you're the most explosive athlete in the world, but you have to explode, say, sideways, and you have no ankle or hip mobility, you might be, you might blow your engine apart. There's another thing you need to do in explosion is you need to make sure you have the appropriate tempo or rhythm to use it correctly. Um, I used to play football with a guy who was the most explosive athlete I ever seen in a play, but he never got it right. He would always get personal, unsportsmanlike conducts for he had this drill. He threw his elbow into right underneath, right into your rib cage, and the officials caught him a number of times doing it. So he's very explosive, but his timing was bad. So how do you build up the appropriate mobility, the appropriate timing? Well, that's specific technique. So absolutely, I think just good old fashioned getting strong for most people, just getting strong will support that. But also make sure that the techniques are appropriate, solid, so that you're using the techniques, so that you're using that explosion to put it into the ball or into the opponent or to whatever you need. The next question. My second question is, what kind of exercises would you recommend for my 13-year-old to be more effective and protect his body when playing soccer? Well, okay, one recommendation I would have is that you take this is from my experience coaching soccer football players. Tumbling and break falling. It has great value. You know, going to a martial art studio and having someone coach your children up on how to fall and roll back up and get into the play, how to take a fall, how to fall backwards, sideways. You don't reach for the ground when you're falling with your fingers to stop your whole body. You learn to roll with the ground. Personally, I think break falling or tumbling for soccer football. And by the way, it'll be interesting if your child ever gets knocked down, they'll roll right back up and get in the play, which is always pretty fun. So first and foremost, I would say, break falling, tumbling is number one. Number two would be any kind of general conditioning. When I was growing up, we used to do 2 laps in an obstacle course and then calisthenics before everything. I mean, at Southwood Junior High, every day we ran 800 meters. Every day we climbed over a fence. We did the monkey bars. We did the dip walk. We did the balance beams. We did the this. We did everything was balance and climbing and hanging. And then we did, it seemed like a long time. We did a lot of calisthenics, good old fashioned jumping jacks. And I think they were called cherry pickers and sidewinders and propellers. And they just all had these silly names. Push-ups, sit-ups, push-ups and sit-ups, by the way, on asphalt, because, that's what we did. And leg raises on asphalt. And doing that kind of thing, I always thought prepared me, as in hindsight, I hated it at the time, but in hindsight, prepared me for most of the rigors of lower end athletics. At the same time, I was taught, and I want you to look up this word, Dan John Southwood program. It's the Power Clean Military Front Squat Bench Press. It's at the website danjohnuniversity.com. Why you're not a member? And that's my number one recommendation for youth training. It's what I did, and it's just simple. If you only did it for 2, 3, 6-week sessions per year for a youth, what do we got? 12, 13-year-olds, I'm guessing. That would be pretty good. All right. I hope that helps, and thanks so much. That was a very good question. Thank you. We have a question from Frank, and I'll answer this as frankly as I can. I've been enjoying your podcast, especially when you talk to young people like a dad. Well, I talk to young people like a dad because I'm a dad and a granddad, and I'm 65, and I'm having a problem with my Medicare, which a sentence you don't really think you're ever going to say. But I'm no kid, having just turned 60. Oh, you're a child. I've lifted most of my adult life, and I'm pretty happy with the results. It's just that I no longer have any spring in my step. I used to bound upstairs light as a feather While walking, I want to break into a jog for the joy of it. Now these moments are a lugubrious grind, and I feel like I weigh a ton. Any advice how to improve the quality of my daily movement? One of the first articles I ever read on the internet was on Clarence Bass's site. He and the late Terry Todd were talking about this exact thing. And the article is still one of my favorite articles ever on Clarence's site. It's about getting spring back in your step. Well, when you think about it, I read that. Gosh, holy cow. I was 41. I was 41 when I read it. Now I'm 65 talking about an article I read on the internet. That's how long I've been on the internet. Holy cow. Huh. So, and I thought when I read it, don't you know who I am? I'm Dan John. I've got all this spring in my step. I'm an Olympic lifter, Highland Game athlete. Yeah, and then this happened. Uh, they talk about just getting up on a curb, which I thought was a good idea. This is why, and just to summarize everything for you, Frank, this is why I'm such a big fan of the kettlebell swing. One of the things, the kettlebell swing, I said one time at a workshop, it's a fat building athlete builder. And boy, you see that quote bounce around the internet. It seems to me all the time. Um, I think one of the reasons I like the kettlebell swing is it done correctly, and that's huge. It is a done correctly. It is a great way to keep those explosive, fast twitch muscle fibers without any impact. Um, so when I do the 10,000 swing challenge every year, and I loathe it, and I actually had a conversation with somebody very close with me who told me that the 10,000 swing challenge is a total waste of time. And it kind of broke my heart a little bit because you don't like to hear that about your own work. But it was a solid point. I mean, having said that, every year after the 10,000 swing challenge, I go back onto an Olympic lifting program, and I notice that my hinge is locked and loaded again for a year. So, okay, there's a couple ideas. Maybe you can't do them, but something like a kettlebell in the weight room, kettlebell swing, any Olympic lift. If you can find safe and appropriate ways to do jumping. Now, I got this from the University of Hawaii, one of their athletes years ago, one of the few athletes from my area who actually did well at the U of H because it's a tough cultural change. I mean, it's really, and I'd be honest with you, it's the party lifestyle. I'm not throwing this on Hawaii. I'm talking about the dorm life at any university. Um, what they were doing was an interesting idea. They were not doing any negatives in their plyometric work. So you jump up on a box, a soft box, or something appropriate. Actually, in many cases, back at the school I used to teach at, we had these rolls of carpet that were rolled up, and I used them to train my athletes, some of my athletes post injury. So you jump up on a carpet roll, and then I had a little step. So you took 2 steps down, jump up, walk down, jump up, walk down. You'll notice I'm a big fan of hill sprints. In your case, I'd say sprint up, lugubriously walk down. Um, I think there's some value to that. I think if you can get to a beach and play a game like frisbee, paddle ball, football, soccer, anything, and run around on a beach for a day where you're going to get at least very limited impact, and just get a sense for where you're sore after that, and then test yourself after that on like a grassy surface and a sport. And then what you might notice is that sadly here in the States anywhere, we're almost so much of the human activities now are on cement and asphalt. And a lot of people are just, I think this is very important. The beat down you're getting from the cement and the asphalt is really hurting you long term other places. So first, make a commitment that you want to keep spring in your life, like I have. When you stand up like Joe Mills taught us. You bounce up out of a chair, boom, explode out of chairs. If someone calls your name, you bounce up. When a lady comes to, this is, okay, boy, I'm gonna get peed on for this one, but I was taught that when a lady walks in a room, you stand up. The other night we're dancing, and When a female would come to the table, I'd always stand up, and someone said, that's nice to see that someone's still doing that. I'm like, am I the only one? But popping up out of chairs, it's a small thing, but if you think about exploding out of chairs when you stand up, it's a small thing, but it helps. You can do something that long. Jumping, where you're jumping up on something and walking down. Jump up, walk down. If you can learn an appropriate kettlebell swing or an Olympic lift, I like that. Hill sprint, walk down. Playing games on soft surfaces. The interesting thing you'll find if you're like me, playing something as simple as catch with an American football or a frisbee, we'll be throwing it like this at first, and then all of a sudden that frisbee will tail away, and you put yourself into a mild sprint. And then all of a sudden, about 20 minutes later, you realize that you're running again without running. You're just sprint. You're just trying to get a ball or a frisbee or whatever. That's what I think you need to do. Try to bring play back in as best as you can too. These are great questions. Thank you so much. This has been kind of fun today. Peter asks a good question. He says, due to the pandemic, money, and inconvenience, I haven't lifted with barbells in a little over 2 years. Wow. However, that is about to change when I join the YMCA near my home. I think I'm generally in good shape and about as strong as I've ever been, but I'm worried about how to get back to form on barbell lifts. For reference, I've spent the last 2 years training with 45-pound kettlebells, dumbbells up to 70, a Smith machine, bands and body weight plus walking. Well, I like that walking stuff, cycling and hill sprints on a regular basis. I was thinking easy strength could be a good program to start with, but I was wondering what you would recommend. If it helps, I'm a 30-year-old man, 5'5", 150, and a former middle distance runner. Well, the first thing I would do, Peter, and I tell this to everybody whenever you go to a new gym, I would spend the first 3 days, 6 days, so, first week or 2 weeks, just kind of getting used to the gym. I know this probably goes against with everybody else. I would check if they have a row of machines. I would play with, personally, I play with every single one of the machines. I figure out what's good about it and bad about it. Boy, I tell you, some of those pushy machines they got at these gyms are horrible for your shoulders. I don't know how people put up with that weird localized ouch that you get on some. A lot of the pull machines are designed by people who've obviously never been human. Um, Almost universally, I find I like the leg extension, leg curl machines, but that could be me because I always like doing those two exercises. But, wander around for at least a day. I would like to see you do 2 weeks. Look at the equipment, see what you like, see what works for you. Get a sense for who uses the squat racks, what kind of racks are we doing, barbells on the floor, and do people clean them up? Is it an anti-deadlifting gym? And then after that, I like your idea, for example, with your background, I like the idea of you doing easy strength. But honestly, what I would recommend first is a week or so, just feel in the gym, go in there, get it, get one of those you've seen the workout where someone just comes in and plays around with everything. By the way, it's a good workout. Another good workout is cleaning up the gym. People don't put anything away anymore. And then after that, what I would recommend most, Peter, is just go to the workout generator, Dan John University, plug in the things plug in what equipment you have, plug in the number of times a week you want to train, and then you know change those workout the exercise selections to what you like best in this new facility. And there you go. The best of both worlds. You've got the usually very well equipped. You got to be. It depends, of course. The YMCA I was in Jerusalem was wonderful, great equipped gym. Generally, you're going to be in a well-equipped gym, and with the workout generator, you'll have a nice little thing that you can print out or keep it on your phone or whatever, however you do it, and you'll be doing something intelligent and progressive, which is really what we want to be doing in the gym. Good luck to you, Peter, and would you mind following up on that and let me know how it goes? Thanks. We have a question from Brian. And Brian, now this is an interesting question. I'm going to go through it, gentle listeners, fast as I can, because there's a lot here. But when we get to the end, it'll make sense why I want to make sure I read the whole question to you. I'm going to try to read a question without commenting. My question is about Olympic lifts. using one arm at a time. Now, I just want to comment right now. I have damage to the bones of one wrist, same, that prevent me from holding the bar with two hands overhead for the snatch and in the catch and front squat position of the clean. The angles don't agree with my condition, and it's just too painful. I've been told by my physical therapist to do what I can to preserve the joint, which includes adapting exercises to accommodate it. Brian, would you give your physical therapist a hug for me and tell him, her, that they brought tears to my eyes? I'm so happy to hear someone say, do what I can to preserve the joint, which includes adapting exercises to accommodate it. That's beautiful. It's beautiful. Thank you. However, I have I have a loadable, adjustable, revolving dumbbell handle and plates. I can snatch, clean, and press it without causing myself pain. Do you think one-handed Olympic lifts are useful? And if you do, any tips for doing them, such as load, sets, reps, and a programming principles for regular Olympic lifts works for them? Not necessarily. Also, would you use a snatch, clean and jerk, and a clean and press, or leave out one or more of those lifts? So, as a person who blew this wrist into multiple pieces, one of the first things I purchased, because I didn't have a big budget, was an adjustable Olympic dumbbell. And that's when I started doing dumbbell snatches with my good hand. It worked out that if I had 25s on there, the snatch was 61 pounds. Okay, this is in pounds, which is really close to the 28 kilo kettlebell. And so basically, I was doing kettlebell training. Now, with the wrist, I had to lighten up, but I noticed very quickly that my whole healthy side of my body, outside of the wrist, was still pretty strong. So here's what I think. And it gets back, basically, you're going to train like you're using kettlebells, except for this. You can do, I did clean and press, I did dumbbell snatch, and I don't think I did dumbbell clean and jerk because the load was never enough for me to have to jerk it. Humble bragging, right? To pat myself on my back. But the dumbbell clean and press and the dumbbell snatch, boy, and you can get some reps on that dumbbell snatch. If you go on T Nation, they might still have my article, The One Dumbbell Workout. And Chris Sugar joked about trying to take the picture for that, and it was just about killing him to do to take the photos for that article. But really, I mean, I think I'll just give you my big ones: clean and press, snatch, one-handed bench press. Those are the ones that I discovered were just money for me. And I think you can do either just go up, you can do multiple reps, you can do 2, 3, 5 ladders, you can do anything you want to do. I love the idea, and I think you'll be very successful. I guess I guess I only have 2 words for you: do it. So yeah, I like it. All right, we have a question from Dothy, and Dothy says something interesting that actually made me look up a few things. Leaning into my 40s, I have become interested in the ancient Greek pentathlon as a way of continuing to develop as a well-rounded human. The way I understand it, the Greeks took the pentathlon as the default template for athletic development, with specializations occurring as they want. Okay, and there's a lot more. The original 5 events, and he's got them here, but he also has wrestling. I want to bounce through it because it's long. The running was sometimes replaced with boxing. I've boxed and grappled most of my life and will continue to do so. I'm a fairly good runner and jumper, but I have very little experience with the throwing arts. My question is, how would you go about organizing the training year round? I foresee training seasonally. I like that. And what would be the first steps in the discus and javelin, since these are my weakness? I would like to get to the intermediate level as fast as possible. I have plenty of training time available, but let's just say I tap out at 11 hours a week. I'm in no rush. Well, that got me. Now, here in the United States, in masters athletics, we still use the pentathlon. And I looked it up because I wanted to make sure I got this right for you. And I was right, except I got one thing wrong. It's the long jump, the running long jump, the javelin, the 200 meters, the discus, and the 1500 meters. And I think the reason I like this question so much is years ago, my brother Gary and I were talking about how actually, if you were just you wanted to compete as long as you can and stay as good as you can, that this 1 day event probably is perfect for you. Now let's I don't know which way to look at this. Let's just do this first. The 1500 meters, I mean, I was told by a very famous decathlete, that you don't train for the 1500 meters in the decathlon, you survive it. It's the 10th of 10 events. All the other events train you up for it. But I would say this. Okay, so we'll start with the 1500 meters. And one of the things I'd recommend that you do, I always call them bagel 5Ks, but because everybody, it's usually fundraisers, those 5Ks for, for the dog pound, for, cat rescue, there's 5Ks in Salt Lake. It seems like every weekend. I've run in a few of them, fundraisers and stuff, always fun. Um, uh, the reason I call them bagel 5Ks is that, you run 5K. Well, run is a reach for some of the people. And then you have a bagel after, which that bagel has more calories than you burned off in that run. One of my former students worked at a famous bagel place here in Salt Lake, and she wouldn't tell me how many calories were in one of the bagels. I don't think I should say it. She finally told me, but let's just say if you read Lulu Hunt's book from 1915, that one bagel is almost as much as the calories she recommends an entire day. One bagel and just a little bit more would be your entire your entire calorie intake. Now, the 5K is more than 3 times the event, but if you run up, I don't know, maybe just one or two might even be pushing a little bit, but certainly one 5K a month. And I'd love it if it was fundraisers because then you meet people and it's fun, and it's great for your social life, your personal life. But maybe one of those a month, just to get used to it. It'd be nice to see those times come down. But you want to get in. Now, I don't like this idea called garbage miles, but you do need, I think, to run a good 1500 appropriately, you need some overlong distance. Between your warm-ups, your cool down, your standing long jump work, and your 200 meters work, that will be the bulk of that one bagel run a month will be the bulk of what I think you need for the 1500 meters. That your normal training, and then that one run will be most of it. To train the 200 meters, I would recommend something along the lines of what Barry Ross does, and I think that's going to also help you with the standing long jump. Basically, and if you read my work or you read Barry's work, you'll get the programs. But I think it's in attempts. I know it's an Easy Strength Omni book, but he was a big believer. If you look up Barry Ross and you go to the Dragon Door website, you'll get his article. I think it's called The Holy Grail. But what you probably want to do, and I don't think it's a bad idea, looking over this, a minimalist weight program. Now, this, folks, just remember, he's into his 40s. He's probably not going to be the Olympic champion, because there is no pentathlon at the Olympic. Well, there's a modern pentathlon, but not a track and field pentathlon. I'm just trying to encourage this person to enjoy this. I think you can get away with the minimalist program. Now, like we could just say, just as easy as an easy strength template, but I'd recommend that you do like the easy strength for fat loss template. Like, so a vertical press, military press, pull-ups would be good for the javelin. Some kind of hinge, some kind of heavy hinge. That's your deadlift family. Ab wheel, because I think the ab wheel helps everybody. A loaded carry. Now, you'll notice I didn't have swings or anything else in, but I gave you a simple template. Vertical press, pull-ups probably, some kind of hinge, a deadlift, ab wheel, set of 10, a loaded carry. The loaded carries for you probably be suitcase carries, because that will build up that, well, according to Stu, I mean, that's the best thing you can do for throwing, striking, and all the rest. So let's look at what we have as a month. We got the bagel run at least once a month, twice in the deep off season, whenever that is, probably fall or winter, depending on your weather. In the weight room, it's easy strength, uh, and I would just make it as simple as possible. Here, 3 sets of 3. Vertical press, pull up. If 3 sets of 3 is too light, you add load, which is going to be good for you. 3 sets of 3 in a rack deadlift, set of 10 in the ab wheel, suitcase carry down and back. And now, of course, it comes to the 2 events you know nothing about, the javelin, the discus. You're going to go to my website. You're going to pull out a contrarian approach to the discus, and you're going to do your best to follow along. On the javelin, I want you to buy yourself a turbo javelin, turbo jav. But I also want you to get maybe a 1 or 2 kilo ball. So remember this. So when I work with the javelin throw now, we throw the javelin this way, but we also take 1 and 2 kilo balls and throw them behind us backwards. Also, the 1 and 2 kilo balls, two-handed, the whole, everything you can overhead. It'll not only be good for you, it'll be good for your balance long term in your shoulders. With the left hand, I do want you to do some throwing forward, and I want you to do some throwing backwards, just to make sure you keep everything in balance and you'll be glad for it. Equipment-wise, then, to do this, you're going to need, well, register at some Bagel 5Ks. You're going to need a power ball for the discus drills I show you. You're going to need a broomstick. You're going to need a turbo jav and a small throws ball, and then a barbell and a place to hang and do pull-ups, and there you go. If you're going to compete, the summer season is when you do that. And by the way, when I got ready for my own weight pentathlons, I used to host my own track meet every Saturday. I just invented it, and a couple times my Highland Game guys showed up. A few times my students showed up, and it was a lot of fun. Very simple, and it really prepared me for the nationals. But in the fall, I would try to push that easy strength program a little hard. I would probably get in. That would be the time to get in the more of those bagel runs, and to practice the events. In the winter, really get strong and really spend time throwing against the walls with the discus and javelin. When the spring comes around, find yourself a local high school track coach. Pay them, which will shock them. Pay them something to go over the long jump and the other events. And if you can, I would even, it wouldn't be, if it were my school, I'd be more than happy to have you come train with my athletes, because I always want my athletes to think that their career isn't over when they turn 17 or 18. So that's a good start. And that's where we're going to end it for this first go round. Follow up. Thank you. Oh, it looks like we have one last question. Rob says this. My question is, how do you go about bridging the gap between goblet squats and double kettlebell front squat and single to double kettlebell cleans? Well, we just do them. Rob, I hate it when I do this. I'm a little confused as your question, but even the follow-up doesn't help me. He goes, are there also any minimum strength standards you would consider before attempting these movements? No, I mean, I did goblet squats, 3 weeks after total hip replacement, light with an assist. I think you just have to move on. At certs, when I'm teaching the kettlebell, or even certs, I mean, just any kind of, we just go right in, boom. Here, this is a goblet squat, this is an overhead squat, this is a front squat. That's the way I teach it. I like to teach, if you follow my work, I like to go goblet squat, overhead squat, and then to a double kettlebell, because once people realize that so much of this isn't shoulder flexibility, it's hip ankle flexibility. So no, we just slide right over, Rob. I feel like I'm missing something on the question here. When I teach certs, this is it's very fluid and so maybe it's just your basic understanding of technique that we need to discuss for now, and maybe we'll come back another time and go through specific issues with you, okay? Well, listen, wow, I'm just scrolling through to see if we've got all the questions answered, and it looks like we do, which is, glorious for me. Listen, reminder, If you have a question, you're going to send them to podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. I'll do my best to answer each and every one. And, until next week, let's all keep on lifting and learning. Thank you so much.